When Vladimir Putin launched his invasion of Ukraine, he believed the conflict would be straightforward. Tanks rolling in, tens of thousands of soldiers marching forward, forcing Kiev to surrender without much resistance. He anticipated a swift victory, confident in his military's might. But what he didn't expect was that the very people standing on his turf might turn against him. Opposition from within began to emerge unexpectedly, Ukrainians resisting occupation in their own land, Russians rising up against the Kremlin's control. This underground movement grew quietly in the shadows, striking with precision and daring to challenge the invaders. These fighters are not just scattered rebels, they are a formidable force, targeting Russian military bases, strategic infrastructure, and even high-profile targets inside Russia itself, something that even the most advanced intelligence services struggle to prevent. The pattern is startling. Attacks are woven into a network that keeps expanding. In November alone, resistance cells unleashed a wave of sabotage, revealing their strength. It all begins in the city of Melitopol, a hotbed of covert activity. One daring attempt involved a group trying to blow up a vehicle carrying a Russian drone team en route to a military operation. The plan nearly succeeded, except, in a rare twist of luck or perhaps misfortune, the explosive device failed to detonate, and the crew survived. But that was just the start. Evidence suggests these resistance units are not only persistent, they are strategic. October saw a series of successful explosions, killing Russian personnel and disrupting supply lines. Russia's narrative tried to dismiss these incidents as accidents or technical failures, but intelligence reports confirm the truth. The resistance in Melitopol is thriving and becoming increasingly coordinated. Russia's grip on occupied territories is slipping. In June, authorities sentenced a family in the region to decades behind bars, accusing them of working with Ukraine and sabotaging railways. Yet, these harsh measures only serve to illustrate Moscow's mounting headaches. Resistance fighters continue their campaign, and their attacks are growing more daring. In November, sabotage inside occupied Luhansk stole the spotlight. The underground fighters managed to plant explosives under Russian military vehicles, causing devastating explosions that claimed several lives. They operate under total secrecy, striking in regions Russia claims to control outright. Their tactics mirror earlier operations in the Kherson region, where similar car bombings took out pro-Russian officers, an ominous sign that Ukraine's underground network is deeply entrenched. Meanwhile, the resistance doesn't limit itself to Ukraine's occupied zones. Farther south, in Crimea, spies recorded Russian jet takeoffs from Saki Air Base, information feeding into Ukraine's intelligence feed, revealing Russian military movements in real time. Knowing what aircraft are stationed at Saki gives Kiev a strategic advantage, hinting at future targeted strikes. Success here could change the game entirely. Every sabotage operation sends a ripple through Russia's military planning. When a vehicle carrying soldiers is destroyed, units have to shift their focus, delaying or canceling planned assaults. When a radar system is taken offline, it hampers Russia's ability to defend its airspace, opening the door for Ukrainian strikes deep inside Russian borders. The more attacks succeed, the more chaos spreads within Moscow's ranks. Not all sabotage occurs inside Ukraine's borders, some are inside Russia itself. Just days after the Kursk operation, reports emerged of 4 military logistics centers being targeted across different regions. Railway relay cabinets, communication towers, these are vital for military coordination. Their destruction causes ripple effects, delays, confusion, reduced operational effectiveness. Russia's logistical backbone is unraveling, and yet, Putin's authorities seem powerless to stop it. The resistance movement is no longer a peripheral problem. It's a full-fledged insurgency reaching into Moscow, Kursk, and beyond. Every strike, every sabotage, signals a war within the war, a struggle that Putin's forces are fighting blindfolded. As these attacks intensify, one question remains: how long can the Kremlin ignore the rising tide of revolt bubbling up from the shadows? In the quiet shadows of Melitopol, resistance fighters risk everything to strike at the heart of Russian occupation. The recent failed attempt to destroy a vehicle carrying a drone crew was just one of many efforts. The crew survived, but the message was clear: Ukraine's underground fighters are relentless. They have mastered the art of precision, targeting key Russian assets with chilling efficiency. Yet, their actions go beyond simple sabotage. Back in October 2023, a daring bombing killed several Russian soldiers, proving that even in heavily controlled territories, resistance is fierce. Russia claimed a short circuit caused the explosion, but everyone knew the truth: Ukrainian partisans had once again struck a powerful blow. Their presence in Melitopol, a region Russia has controlled virtually since the invasion began, has become a steady threat to Moscow's grip. Russia's attempts to stop this resistance have largely failed. In June, the authorities sentenced a family to decades behind bars for collaborating with Ukraine and sabotaging a railway, one of their few wins. But resistance fighters kept pushing forward, undeterred. November saw a failed car bombing, yet it set the stage for more daring operations. Just days later, in occupied Luhansk, underground fighters achieved a devastating victory. They planted explosives under 2 Russian vehicles. When they detonated, 4 soldiers lost their lives. It was a brutal reminder: Ukraine's fighters are deeply embedded in regions Russia thought they controlled. The pattern repeats, each attack more daring and precise than the last. These fighters have become experts in selecting targets, gaining access to crucial vehicles and equipment. The October bombings in Kherson match similar operations from earlier months, striking Russian military logistics and communication hubs. Explosions took out critical railways and communication relays, crippling Moscow's ability to replenish its forces. Every sabotage creates chaos, delaying or destroying plans for future assaults. But the most alarming news comes with the intelligence gathering in Crimea. Recent operations reveal Ukrainian infiltrators have obtained real-time data on Russian jets stationed at Saki Air Base. Knowing what aircraft are on the runway gives Ukraine a deadly advantage, targeting their next move. The skies around Crimea are no longer safe for Russian aircraft, and Ukraine's options multiply. Could this lead to a decisive strike on key Russian airbases? The tension thickens, and the unknown hangs heavy in the air. Meanwhile, inside Russia itself, resistance is spreading. On November 5, Ukrainian special operations claimed the destruction of a vital transport vehicle used for missile delivery in Kursk. The attack was carried out not by their own forces, but by a secret partisan group known as Black Spark. They also destroyed an air defense radar station, further weakening Moscow's ability to defend its borders. These coordinated strikes target Russian logistical and communication hubs, aiming to destabilize the entire war effort. The sound of roaring engines, the scent of burnt metal, and the tactile jolt of explosions mark each step of this underground campaign. Every fire, every sabotage interrupts Russia's military rhythm. The destruction of railway relay stations and power grids hampers troop movements and communication lines. Piece by piece, Moscow's strategic plans unravel, as resistance fighters adapt and strike again. What will happen when these covert operations push Russia into chaos? Will Moscow finally admit that its grip is slipping? The resistance's relentless war inside occupied Ukraine and beyond threatens to turn the tide. The secret strikes aren't just attacks, they're a desperate fight for freedom, igniting a spark that could change the course of history. And as the world watches, the question remains: how much longer can Putin's regime maintain control when shadows gather and blow up everything in its path? Following a series of dramatic sabotage attacks, it's clear that Ukraine's underground fighters are operational deep within enemy territory, striking fear and chaos in Russian ranks. What does this mean for Putin's faltering control? Could these covert strikes unravel Russia's entire military strategy? The recent explosions have revealed a shocking reality: Ukraine's resistance forces are not just fighting on the front lines, they're infiltrating the heart of Russian-controlled regions, turning the tide in ways no one foresaw. In November, a deadly car explosion aimed at Chechen officers in occupied territories slaughtered 4 Russian soldiers. The sophistication of this attack speaks volumes. Ukrainian underground fighters are now experts at pinpointing crucial military vehicles and planting explosives with surgical precision. These fighters don't just strike, they undermine Russia's entire command structure from within. As the noise of detonations echoes through occupied zones, Russia's once confident military posture begins to crumble. But the assault doesn't stop there. In Crimea, a new level of espionage unfolded. Ukrainian infiltrators caught Russian fighter jets taking to the skies from Saki airbase, capturing crucial real-time intelligence of Russia's flight patterns. Imagine the chilling sensation of knowing exactly when and where enemy jets are poised to strike. Future targets become dangerously precise. This intelligence isn't just information, it's a weapon. Could Ukraine soon deliver a decisive blow, destroying the very airfield that serves as Russia's gateway into the peninsula? The pressure mounts. Every explosion shifts Russia's strategic calculus. When a Russian vehicle erupts, troops are forced to jump to unfamiliar positions or delay vital operations. The chaos sows confusion, delaying or even canceling planned assaults. Each successful sabotage worsens Russia's predicament. The underground resistance's reach continues to grow, weaving a deadly web that tightens around Moscow's military ambitions. How long can Vladimir Putin maintain control amid such relentless internal chaos? But beneath this turmoil lies a disturbing truth: resistance fighters aren't confined to Ukraine's occupied regions. They are operating within Russia itself. In November, a clandestine group known as Black Spark destroyed a vital missile transport vehicle in Kursk, disrupting Moscow's arsenal of around 600 strategic missiles. As the sound of fire spreads across railway stations and electrical yards, beacons of logistical strength, Russia's military foundation begins to crack. These covert strikes aren't random, they are calculated, coordinated assaults designed to paralyze Russia's underground command network. Imagine the scent of burnt metal mingling with the tense silence after explosion echoes fade, every act weakening the Russian war effort from within. The destruction of electronics and communication infrastructure hampers Moscow's ability to coordinate its forces, giving Ukraine a growing advantage. Every sabotage leaves Russia scrambling, desperate to regain lost ground, but the resistance's momentum is unstoppable. Could these relentless strikes ignite a collapse from the inside? As the fires die down, another ominous question lingers: what is truly happening behind the curtains of secret war? These clandestine operations, driven by rebels and saboteurs, are not isolated, they form a complex, interconnected web. Is it possible that Ukrainian intelligence agencies and underground fighters are working hand in glove, sharing information and tactics to keep Russia off balance? If so, it's a game changer. And what about inside Russia? The betrayal runs deeper than many realize. Resistance groups like Black Spark are not just attacking external targets, they're actively sniping at Moscow's supply lines and military hubs. Their actions suggest a terrifying level of infiltration and coordination. How much longer can Putin's regime withstand this internal insurgency? The answer might determine the future of the conflict itself. Each new attack sends tremors through Russia's heartland: railways, air defenses, communication lines, everything that sustains Moscow's military machine is vulnerable. The sounds of fire and the acrid scent of burnt wiring fill the air as Russia's logistical base deteriorates day by day. If these sabotage campaigns continue, what scenarios lie ahead? Could we witness the unraveling of Russia's military might from the inside out, an unstoppable collapse that few saw coming? The stakes are higher than ever, and the future remains shrouded in uncertainty and peril. As Ukraine's resistance deepens, the disruption extends far beyond occupied territories. Hidden underground, groups like the partisans are acting with astonishing coordination, blowing up transport trucks, sabotaging radar systems, and striking at strategic military assets. It's as if a shadow war is raging beneath the surface, catching the enemy off guard at every turn. Picture this: a covert team planting explosives under a Russian vehicle in wide-open fields, their movements silent but deadly. Moments later, an explosion rocks the region, 4 Russian soldiers eliminated in an instant. These fighters operate with terrifying precision, targeting vehicles, radar supports, and infrastructure crucial to the Russian war machine. The stakes are escalating. Not only are Ukrainian insurgents striking inside Ukraine's borders, but they're also sneaking into Russia itself. In Kursk, a vital relay transport is destroyed, crippling Russia's ability to deliver ballistic missiles and intercept Ukraine's defenses. Meanwhile, in Crimea, spies capture real-time images of Russian jets on the tarmac, information that could lead to devastating future strikes. Every secret revealed is a blow to Russia's confidence and a strategic advantage for Ukraine. Now, astonishingly, some of these sabotage teams operate openly within Russian territory. In one daring raid, a Russian partisan group known as Black Spark bombs a military vehicle used for transporting weapons and missiles. They also disable crucial radar systems supporting air defenses, deliberate blows meant to weaken Russia's capacity to respond. It's a clear sign, resistance fighters are no longer just fighting locally, but are a persistent threat that extends deep into Russia's own lines. What's truly shocking is the level of coordination. These attack squads share intelligence with Ukraine's military forces. They know what targets matter most: airfields, supply routes, command centers, and they strike with surgical precision. Every successful operation throws Russia into chaos. Troops are rerouted, missions are delayed, the entire offensive strategy is destabilized. Ukraine's underground fighters have become a force that's nearly impossible to contain. And perhaps the most disturbing fact of all, some of Putin's own people are betraying him, aiding these insurgents instead of fighting against them. The resistance is growing smarter, bolder, and more connected than ever before, revealing a complex web of rebellion that could forever alter the course of this conflict. The question is, how long can Putin's government keep this underground war hidden? When will the next strike hit where it hurts the most? The battle is no longer just fought on open fields or city streets, it's raging silently in the shadows, reshaping the future of this fractured nation. The relentless sabotage campaign continues to threaten Russia's ability to project power. Imagine the impact. Taking out a key transport vehicle strikes fear into the heart of military logistics, cutting off vital supply lines. But the real game-changer? The recent destruction of a radar system. This wasn't just an attack, it was a strategic blow that hampers Russia's air defenses, forging a clear path for Ukrainian drones and missiles to penetrate deeper into Russian territory. Now, this disruption grants Ukraine unprecedented opportunities. More precise strikes become possible, and new aerial corridors open, allowing Ukrainian forces to fly unchallenged through Kursk on their way to targets deep inside Russia. Every explosion echoes a larger intent, undermining the fortress built by Russia. The failed attempt to blow up a car in Melitopol signaled challenges ahead. The recent sabotage in Kursk marked a new chapter, more covert operations within Russia's borders, intensifying the chaos for Moscow. Just 4 days after the Kursk attack, reports emerged of Ukrainian partisans striking again. They targeted 4 crucial military logistics hubs in Bashkortostan and Volgograd. Fires engulfed communications towers and a railway relay station, targets vital to Russia's supply chain. These railroads are the arteries feeding troops and equipment into Crimea and Ukraine. The damage, though seemingly small, sent shockwaves through Russian military planning, forcing delays, confusion, and vulnerability. Russia's logistical infrastructure is crumbling under guerrilla strikes. Once considered untouchable, supply networks now lie in ruins. Relay cabinets destroyed, communication towers burned, each act a calculated blow to Russia's ability to coordinate. Local officials admit, these incidents are mounting, escalating faster than Moscow can respond. The sheer scope of underground activities is staggering. From Moscow to Kursk, sabotage erupts, transforming quiet infrastructure into a battleground. Electrical panels ignite, relay boxes are raised, railway lines turned into chaos. The sound of fires crackling and metal twisting echoes through the night, symbols of Russia's weakening grip. Authorities are overwhelmed, grasping for answers, but are met with silence, an acknowledgement that they are losing this covert war. In the shadows, resistance fighters adapt, grow bolder, and strike with surgical precision. Russia's own defenses crumble as the underground war whispers an unsettling truth: victory is slipping further from their grasp with every clandestine attack. What's next? Could this guerrilla warfare spark a collapse from within? Only time will tell. In recent months, Russia faces a rising wave of covert sabotage that it can't control. Hidden networks of resistance operate undetected, striking at vital infrastructure, while Moscow's efforts to suppress them prove futile. Officials dismiss these incidents as mere technical failures, but beneath that lie acts of rebellion that expose Russia's vulnerability. The air thickens with tension. Can Putin's regime contain an unstoppable underground movement that's weakening his grip from within? The sounds of explosions, the scent of burnt metal, and the tactile jolt of shattered infrastructure reveal a startling truth. Each act of sabotage feels like a punch: railway lines ablaze, electrical stations reduced to char, communication hubs destroyed. From Moscow to Kursk, these attacks grow more brazen, more frequent. Yet, the government insists it's nothing but glitches. But who believes them anymore? These aren't random failures, they're deliberate strikes by determined foes. The question echoes louder: how long can Russia pretend everything is under control when chaos is erupting behind the scenes? The recent sabotage along railway lines and electrical grids is a clear sign. These aren't isolated incidents. They're part of a strategic campaign aiming to drain Russia's strength. Saboteurs have infiltrated deep into its borders, their methods meticulously planned. As they set fires and plant explosives, they cut off essential supplies and mess with troop movements. The sounds of crackling wires and the smell of burnt insulation serve as a grim reminder: Russia's central infrastructure is under siege. The regime desperately tries to hide the truth, but the relentless wave of attacks keeps exposing its weaknesses. Is this the beginning of the collapse Putin fears most? Inside Russia, the resistance movement grows bolder. It's no longer confined to Ukrainian territories. These fighters have crossed into Russian heartlands. And guess what? Some of Putin's own people are betraying him. Recent attacks on military logistics and missile depots reveal a disturbing truth: the underground networks are effective, well-organized, and well-informed. In Kursk and Crimea, sabotage efforts have reached levels never seen before, targeting key military assets with precision. Explosive devices blown under transport trucks or placed beneath radar systems threaten to dismantle Russia's warfighting capabilities. The sense of looming disaster intensifies. How can the regime fight an enemy embedded deep inside its own territory? The secrecy thickens with each successful attack. Intelligence sources believe that underground groups are working hand-in-hand with Ukrainian operatives, sharing information to maximize impact. In Crimea, intercepted communications and real-time drone surveillance provide Kyiv with unparalleled insight into Russian movements. This clandestine cooperation twists the knife, turning what might seem like isolated acts into a coordinated insurgency. But strangely, Moscow's authorities refuse to acknowledge the depth of the problem. Instead, they cling to illusions of control, even as the underground ecosystem expands. Can Putin's regime withstand this silent storm threatening to tear it apart from inside? Meanwhile, the strikes aren't limited to Ukraine's borders. Inside Russia, sabotage missions escalate. In Kursk, a railway relay cabinet is consumed in flames, knocking out communication and delaying troop deployments. In Bashkortostan, multiple military logistics facilities are targeted. Powerful fires destroy transport trucks and critical communication hubs. The air fills with smoke and the sharp sting of burning metal, as the infrastructure that sustains Russia's war effort crumbles. These acts of defiance echo across the nation, igniting fears of a coming collapse. What's fueling this unstoppable underground uprising? And how much longer can Putin's government suppress the truth under cover stories of technical failures? The evidence is undeniable: an underground insurgency dismantles Russia's command from the shadows. The explosions, the fires, the disabling of communication networks, each attack strips away a layer of Putin's control. Resistance cells are expanding, operating with increasing sophistication. As they strike key targets, from military equipment depots to strategic pipelines, they expose the fragile underbelly of Russia's military machine. The sound of alarm bells rings louder with every new attack, a deafening reminder that this war is no longer confined to open battlefields. But will the Kremlin admit its vulnerabilities before the underground forces bring it to its knees? When Vladimir Putin launched his campaign in Ukraine, he believed it would be quick and decisive. Tanks rolled in, tens of thousands of soldiers advanced, and he expected Ukraine to surrender within days. But the reality shattered his illusions. The invasion stalled. Resistance erupted in every corner, catching him off guard. With unwavering determination, Ukrainians fought back, sabotage, and silent strikes shaking Russia from within. What Putin never saw coming was the fierce rebellion brewing inside his own borders. Some of his loyal subjects turned against him, risking everything to oppose his regime. Hidden in shadows and buried beneath the chaos, underground fighters launched stealth attacks, disrupting Russian military plans and sparking chaos in the heart of Moscow. The clandestine war in Russia itself has become more intense than anyone anticipated, an unpredictable storm Putin cannot control. According to recent reports, this resistance movement has grown into a vast network. In the darkness of Melitopol and other occupied regions, Ukrainian saboteurs operate with deadly precision. One such group, the Partisans, targeted a vehicle carrying Russian drone crews attempting to gather intelligence. The attack failed, survivors escaped, but it was just the beginning. In October alone, brave fighters managed to blow up Russian military vehicles, killing several soldiers in the process. These fighters aren't just attacking in occupied territories, they're striking deep inside Russia, in regions like Luhansk and Krasnodar. Explosive devices have been planted under enemy vehicles, taking out pro-Russian officers and soldiers. A pattern has emerged: Ukrainian partisans are targeting key military assets, subtly crippling Russian operations without ever crossing the open battlefield. Their ability to access tightly secured targets suggests a well-organized and determined underground movement. The chaos extends beyond sabotage in Ukraine. In Crimea, covert operatives intercepted vital intelligence, recordings of Russian fighter jets taking off from Saki Air Base. Knowing the flight schedules of Russian aircraft gives Ukraine a tactical edge, turning secretive reconnaissance into a dangerous game of cat and mouse. With this information, Ukrainian drones and missiles could target Russian airbases at will, disrupting Moscow's aerial strategy and forcing Russia to divert troops, all in silence and shadows. Every successful sabotage behind enemy lines translates into a strategic victory for Ukraine. When enemy vehicles explode, Russian troops face delays, confusion, and internal chaos. A disrupted troop movement can stall an entire offensive, giving Ukraine precious time and space to prepare. These operations mar Russia's battlefield calculus, forcing Moscow to scramble constantly, an unending game of damage control. The collaboration between Ukraine's intelligence agencies and underground fighters is undeniable. How do the partisans know what Ukraine needs? It's clear they share information, coordinating operations with high precision. This unseen alliance showcases Putin's miscalculation: the resistance isn't confined to Ukraine itself. It's spilling into Russia, with some of his own citizens openly fighting against him, risking everything to sabotage his war machine. In recent months, resistance activities have surged inside Russia. In Kursk, a Ukrainian partisan group called Black Spark destroyed a transport vehicle used for missile delivery. The attack was intense, taking out the vehicle and nearby radar systems that supported Russia's air defenses. Such targeted strikes weaken Moscow's ability to respond and allow Ukrainian forces to operate more freely, deeper into Russian territory. The attack in Kursk was not isolated. Soon after, sabotage operations spread across Russia's vast landscape. Power stations, relay cabinets, and railway infrastructure became targets. In the Ural and Volgograd regions, fires blazed at communication towers and railway depots, set deliberately to cause chaos and cripple logistics. These acts of sabotage are more than isolated incidents, they're part of a rising tide of resistance. Putin's once secure rear is now vulnerable. Every damaged relay, every destroyed rail line, weakens Russia's capacity to mobilize and respond. The once hidden underground war has ignited into a full-scale insurgency that rattles even the highest levels of the Kremlin. What's most disturbing for Putin is that the resistance isn't just from discontented civilians. Some operatives are former military, others are ordinary citizens driven by patriotism. With every act of defiance, they expose the cracks in his regime. As they continue to strike, sometimes with sophisticated tactics, the bottom line becomes clear: Putin is losing control. In the shadows of Russia, a silent revolution is unfolding. The true scope of the revolt is only beginning to surface. How long can Putin suppress an uprising that grows bolder with each passing day? As the resistance spreads from Moscow to the Ural Mountains and beyond, one thing is certain: the unspoken war within Russia itself is transforming everything. And the world is only just beginning to realize how far this underground rebellion might go. In the early days of the Ukraine conflict, Vladimir Putin underestimated the power of resistance. He imagined a swift victory, with tanks rolling in and Ukraine surrendering immediately. But as days turned into weeks, it became clear that his assumptions were flawed. Resistance forces, hidden in shadows, began executing daring strikes against his own forces, showing him the war is far from over. What Putin didn't expect was that some of his own people would turn against him. Across occupied regions of Ukraine and even within Russia, underground fighters are conducting relentless sabotage missions. They are learning how to strike at Russia's military assets, disrupting plans with precision and stealth. These fighters are unpredictable in ways Putin never anticipated. In November alone, these covert units have dealt significant blows. In Melitopol, Ukraine's partisans attempted to destroy a drone crew vehicle, an attack that would have crippled Russian reconnaissance efforts if successful. Although the bomb failed to detonate, it marked just the beginning of a wave of daring operations. Saboteurs assassinated Russian troops in Luhansk, planting explosives under vehicles and causing fatal blasts. The pattern repeats: targeted explosions, strategic strikes, each weakening Russia's hold further. But it's not just inside Ukraine. Off the battlefield, Ukrainian infiltrators are gathering intelligence in Crimea, peeking into Russian military bases. They are watching and listening, knowing the exact departure times of fighter jets from Saki Air Base. This knowledge could soon lead to devastating strikes, precision-based attacks that could cripple Russian air power, forever changing the game. Each sabotage operation injects chaos into Russia's military framework. Russia is forced to reallocate troops, delay plans, or cancel assaults altogether. Every explosion and every piece of intel chips away at Putin's carefully constructed war machine. Meanwhile, Ukrainian intelligence works hand in hand with underground fighters, sharing crucial information that keeps the resistance growing stronger. But what happens when this network of fighters extends beyond Ukraine's borders? Resistance isn't confined. Russian territory itself becomes a battleground. In Kursk, a small group of partisans carried out a daring operation, destroying a transport vehicle loaded with missile components and a radar system. These attacks, subtle but impactful, make it impossible for Russia to maintain control over its own defenses. Then, in regions like Bashkortostan and Volgograd, underground fighters launched a series of reconnaissance and sabotage acts, setting fire to communication towers, disabling railway relays. These seemingly isolated incidents are part of a rising tide of unrest. They threaten to paralyze Russia's logistics and military coordination, throwing its entire war effort into disarray. And Putin's worst nightmare deepens: these underground movements keep spreading. Each successful attack sends shockwaves through Russia's corridors of power. Resistance groups are evolving into an unseen, uncontainable force, an insurgency that strikes where they least expect. Can he stop this uprising? Or will internal betrayal and relentless assaults bring his empire to its knees? The question lingers: how long can he hold the line against this invisible enemy? In the shadowy depths of the ongoing conflict, Ukraine has cultivated an unseen army, a network of partisans operating behind enemy lines. These aren't formal soldiers but fierce fighters embedded within occupied territories, ready to strike with precision. Their presence forces Russia to face a hidden war that blurs the lines of traditional combat. But what if the real threat isn't just in Ukrainian regions? What if Russia's own land is becoming a battleground? Within Moscow, hidden resistance groups like Freedom of Russia and others are launching audacious attacks against their own country's infrastructure. They target communication hubs, rail networks, and military logistics, aiming to sabotage Putin's war machine from within. Shockingly, these clandestine fighters often slip through borders undetected, exploiting citizenship laws imposed in regions like Crimea. Since 2014, Russia has forcibly Russified parts of its population, inadvertently providing cover for secret operatives to act freely inside their borders. As sabotage incidents rise, fires at railways, explosions at key junctions, the country's stability is unraveling. According to recent intelligence reports, by mid-2025, these operations have escalated into a formidable proxy war. Groups like HA lead the charge in occupied Ukraine, conducting roughly half of all sabotage missions in the region that year. Meanwhile, within Russia, entities like Freedom of Russia carry out targeted strikes, their actions echoing across cities and countryside alike. The noise of small explosions, the crackle of fires, the faint scent of smoke, all signals of an uprising that Putin never anticipated. What covert secrets lie buried in these underground conflicts? Are these acts of rebellion merely isolated sabotage, or are they signaling something far larger? As each explosion echoes across Russia, the question remains, how much longer can Putin's grip hold when his own shadows rebel? The war behind the war is unfolding with relentless precision, swift, silent, and unstoppable. And it's only just beginning. The resistance forces operating inside Ukraine have unexpectedly turned the tide of the conflict. As the headlines focus on Russia's airstrikes, Ukraine's stealthy fighters, volunteers, and fighters of freedom work tirelessly behind the scenes. Their true goal isn't to end the war with massive assaults but to weaken Russia's military step by step. Picture this: sabotage attacks strike at the most critical moments, causing chaos just as Russian plans are about to succeed. These acts drain resources, unsettle commanders, and force Moscow to divert troops from their main objectives. Every sabotage, every disruption is like a tiny wound that adds up to a fatal blow for Russia's war machine. Resistance groups are targeting logistics lines, intercepting vital intelligence, and forcing Russian units to waste effort on self-protection. In the depths of the rear, attacks on energy, communications, and railway networks reveal hidden weaknesses. These strikes expose that Putin's forces are more fragile than they look, stretched thin trying to hold control. But what truly shakes Putin's confidence is the realization that opposition isn't just fierce but widespread. Behind enemy lines, secret teams, like the elite Freedom of Russia Legion, are causing nightmares for the Kremlin. Earlier in November, these fighters, supported by Ukrainian intelligence, launched daring strikes across Russia, wrecking locomotives and knocking out crucial rail hubs. The sound of explosions echoes through the night, the smell of burning metal fills the air. Imagine the chaos, the uncertainty. Each attack is a covert blow to Moscow's plans, knocking out military hardware, destroying supply routes, and spreading fear among Russian troops. These clandestine operations aren't random, they're precise, coordinated, and designed to fracture Russia's entire war effort. And the shocking twist? The resistance isn't confined only to occupied Ukraine. Instead, they are sneaking into the depths of Russia itself. Some of Putin's own people have turned against him, spying, sabotaging, crippling the very heart of his homeland's military infrastructure. On November 5, the same brave units, supported by Ukrainian operatives, targeted Russian missile transports in Kursk, crippling critical weapons and sowing chaos inside Russia's borders. The sound of distant explosions echoes, the texture of tension thickens. These strikes aren't isolated incidents, they form a pattern that suggests a growing, unstoppable underground movement. Russia's military machinery is faltering, unable to keep pace with the relentless underground assault. Weakening air defenses, sabotaged communication hubs, and the destruction of key railway nodes spread havoc deep within Russia's own territories. This is more than just an insurgency, it's a subtle yet fierce revolution. Resistance fighters have become the unseen enemies within a fortress. The question remains, how long can Putin's regime withstand this underground uprising that strikes at its core? The answer might just surprise everyone, because what's happening now could change the course of this war forever. Behind the seemingly unbreakable facade of Russian strength lies a brewing storm. Resistance fighters operating deep within occupied Ukraine are shifting the tide of the conflict. While headlines scream about airstrikes and military clashes, behind the scenes, covert operations are quietly unraveling Moscow's plans. These fighters, blending into the shadows, aren't just defending, they are striking with precision, aiming to weaken the Russian war machine from within. Imagine secret missions that cause immediate chaos. Sabotage attacks target critical moments, crippling supply lines and command centers just as Russian advances seem unstoppable. The sound of distant explosions echoes like a thunderclap, smoke billowing into the sky. The aroma of scorched metal and burning fuel fills the air, creating a scene straight out of a nightmare for Moscow's strategists. Each covert strike drains Russia's resources and forces commanders to waste precious effort on damage control, rather than achieving their objectives. The resistance isn't limited to just Ukrainian-occupied territories. They are infiltrating Russia itself. Some of Putin's own citizens, deeply embedded in his military and infrastructure, have turned defiant. They are spies and saboteurs, actively working to cripple Russia's own defenses. Recently, a covert group called Black Spark successfully targeted missile transports in Kursk, destroying crucial weapon stockpiles. The blast was deafening, and the chaos that ensued was palpable. This wasn't a random act, it was a calculated blow meant to cripple Russia's offensive capabilities and sow disarray within its borders. These underground fighters aren't just attacking military targets, they are striking vital communication hubs, power grids, and railways. Their goal is clear: spread uncertainty, disrupt logistics, and erode morale. The sound of breaking glass, the flicker of flames consuming electrical panels, this is the new battlefield. As these strikes intensify, Russia's military machinery begins to falter. Its air defenses weaken, and its command networks become vulnerable. Every sabotaged railway, each destroyed relay station, is a wound that bleeds productivity and confidence. But how is this even possible? Resistance fighters have honed their skills through years of clandestine operations. They coordinate with Ukrainian intelligence to target strategic assets deep within Russia. The question remains, how long can Putin's regime endure an invisible enemy operating right at its core? This isn't just a rebellion. It's a quiet revolution, an uprising that threatens to topple the very foundation of Russia's war effort. The twist? Some of the most significant blows come from within his own ranks, traitors working behind enemy lines, secretly aiding Ukraine's cause. Every attack deepens the crisis for Moscow. The sound of explosions, the texture of tension thickening in hidden corners of Russia's vast territories, signals a profound shift. Resistance isn't just fighting for Ukraine anymore, it's fighting for Russia's future. How much longer can Putin hold this fractured empire together? The answer may lie in the shadows, where the true battle for control is raging, silent, relentless, unstoppable.